Hey, this is Mike Boggs, Stryker System Sales Manager, and I wanted to take just a few minutes and go over a specific feature, or in this case, a specific command found in our SS Punch software. And the command is our replace edge hits command. It's a very powerful command, a very versatile command, but one that a lot of our customers, I'm sure, don't realize the full extent of its capability or power. So we'll touch on that. I'm diving into this pretty unscripted, so if you see any blunders or I have to back up on anything, that's the reason why. I'm going to start by going into my part share, part library, and there's a part that I've been working on. I'm going to just do an insert on that, drop it into my workspace, and begin by going ahead and using the SS Punch Auto Punch feature and applying tooling to the part. And all of my settings are at their defaults. It's fine where it's at, so we will let that process. And if I look at this, I see that it's punched it fine. I could run this part. However, for me as a programmer, there may be certain scenarios that I want to address because of a situation that I'm aware of, or maybe just personal preference. Now, the replace edge hits command itself, I can hover over any tool and just do a right click, and we see all of these commands in the right click menu. And if you haven't been in here, it's something that you'll want to take a look at, because there are a lot of shortcuts in here that can save some time. But the one we'll look at today is this replace edge hits command. Now, the way that works, the way the replace edge hits command works, is if I have a situation where I need to change the way that something is currently processed, the way that it's punched. So in this case right here, I've got this rectangle, which is a 1 1/4 by 1/4 inch rectangle, and it used that rectangle in all likelihood because it was able to do that with a single tool hit, versus it looks like with this square, which I've got a zero point 0.7 square, that it would take 2 tool hits to be able to do that. In this case, I'm going to go to the tool that I want to use and do a right click. Okay, so I'm basically activating the tool that I'm hovering over, and I can do a replace edge hits and then just touch the tool that I want to replace, and it reevaluates that edge and repunches it with the desired tool. Okay, very quick. I also have this scenario where I've got the 1 1/4 inch rectangle, and over here I've got a 3-inch rectangle, and it used the 1 1/4 over here, probably because my punch rules were not going to allow it to extend out that far, and my sustained shear gap value was smaller than this gap right here, or it would have punched all the way across it. So SS Punch, very powerful. It has settings that would account for all of this, but just because of the way that I have it set right now, this is the scenario that I end up with. So I'm going to just override the current settings that I have that gave me this result by saying replace edge hits, and I want to process with that tool. Now in this case there was a tab here, so again, into the right click menu, add tabs. I just want to put a tab on an existing tool and pull that back. So there we go. Now in this case, maybe I want to change this tool out. If I hover over that, I got a 1/4 inch square, and I do have a tool that will work for that and do it in a single hit. The reason that it didn't use it probably is because that tool hit would stick out fairly far relative to all of the others, and I have a pretty tight collar that I've defined around this part, because I'm going to take this and I'm going to create multiples of them, and I didn't want tool hits sticking out too far. But in this case, yeah, I can do that with a single tool hit. Now the tool hit actually is already on the screen, so I could absolutely just come over here. It's this square. I could come over here and just do a right click, replace edge hits, and select this one. That would work perfectly fine. However, just for demonstration purposes, let's assume that the tool that I want to use is not currently on the screen. Maybe I know that I have it on the turret, but I haven't used that tool yet. Well, one of the options of the replace edge hits command is I can go into replace edge hits, and rather than selecting the tool that I want to replace with, I actually type a T for a tool change, and then I could go in and select the tool that I want to use, make sure it's active, and then go in and select the tool that I want to replace with that. Okay, so either way, if the tool's on the screen, then I can just right click on that. That becomes my active tool, or I have the option of going into replace edge hits and then going into the turret and activating a specific tool. Now, a couple of other scenarios here where the replace edge hits could come in handy. So here's one. So I notice that over here I've got a little corner relief, bend relief that I've punched up here, but there's not one down here. So maybe I just forgot to do that, and now I've already punched the part, or it came from engineering that way, and I've already made a bunch of changes to my tooling on here, so I want to kind of maintain what I've got. So, I mean, ideally, of course, if you've got an engineering change, you want to take that, make the engineering change, push it back into PartShare, update that part, and that way you've maintained that. But maybe this is a one-off part. I need to get this thing on the floor real quick. So what I'm going to do, and there's different ways of handling this. In fact, if I was really in a hurry, I could just insert a tool and position it at that location, or in this case, if I had a tool that would work, I could use a copy command and just grab that tool and position it in place. Perfectly valid, but in this case, for demonstration purposes, we will go through the process of kind of redesigning this area. So I'm going to do a right click on this part, and I'm going to say delete edge hits. Okay, so just to get those out of the way so it's easier for me to work on that corner. And then using an SS design feature, I'm going to go into corner relief, and then I can just touch a couple lines and different relief types. I'm going to say, okay, I got an 1/8 inch radius round, and it's put that on there. Now, I do happen to have a tool that will work on that, so I'm going to go to that tool, say replace edge hits, and in this case I'm not selecting another tool that I want to replace. I'm actually just selecting the object that I want processed, and I get the same result. So same thing here. I removed these tools just to get them out of the way, but I could come and say replace edge hits and just touch the objects that I want to process and let it reprocess those edges for me. And in this case, I might have a tab that I need to put on there. So we'll go into my right click and do a tab on there. Now, I could have done all of that same thing by just making that modification and then using the SS punch command and telling it to repunch the part, and it would have evaluated that and reprocessed it. But that's an example of how we could do that. And a couple of other scenarios. So here, for example, I've got what is that, a 1.5 inch square that's cleared this area. Now, let's say that me as a programmer, I know that 1.5 inch square is broken, it's out for maintenance, whatever. I don't have access to that tool, but unfortunately, it was still sitting in my turret in my software. So I'm going to come over here to the 1.25 by 1/4 inch rectangle, replace edge hits, and just punch the perimeter of that area. Now, in this case, I will go in and drop a couple of tabs on there to hold that slug in place, and there we go. And then one final one that I will point out is here I've got what is this? This is I got a 3/8 round, and again, let's say that for whatever reason something has happened to that tool. I don't have access to that tool. So I know I can't use that. So I'm going to come over here to this one, and I don't have another tool maybe that's within tolerance that I can use there. So I'm going to come over here to this 1/4 inch round, replace edge hits, and when I touch that tool, then it goes ahead and nibbles that out. It also goes ahead and processes all of the holes that are of that size. One other thing that the replace edge hits command can do is, if I right click here, replace edge hits, notice that along with having the option to say tool change, I also have an option here to select scallop. So maybe I've processed this thing, but I need to adjust the scallop on it. Maybe I want to tighten up on that some, so we'll make that 005, and there you go. So just give you an idea of some of what the replace edge hits command can do for you. And then just for demonstration purposes, if I wanted to go ahead and lay this part out now that I've got it punched the way that I want to, I'm going to do a right click here, go into an iNest copy of this part. So I'm just making a copy of the part out here, and I actually could have done this all with one step, but then I'm going to do an iNest move of this part. Okay, so allows me to drag it and it kind of butts up against all the margins, but in this case I'm going to say I want to rotate it 180 degrees, and we'll pull it right in here against this other part, and then use a grid command where we can just fill up the sheet. So there you go. Hope that's helpful. If you have any additional questions with anything, if we can be of assistance in any way, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you very much.